So I just turned 80. Yeah. The Gene Queen, 80. Oh my God, that's like being on top of Mount Everest looking down. Don't look down, just look forward. And you know what? Do you have the resilience? Do you have the purpose? Do you have the grit and the strength to age and age joyfully and purposefully and right for yourself? Of course you do. And we're going to talk about how in today's episode of the 80/40 Factor.
Hello, and welcome to the 80/40 Factor, where deeper conversations bridge generations. I am Nyna GIlpin, social media strategist and entrepreneur, and I am joined by my legendary co-host, the queen of jeans herself, the Diane Gilman.
Hi.
Now, Diane and I are 40 years apart in age, but we actually have a lot in common, and one of those is, if things aren't right, reinvention is always an option.
Reinvention is the option.
The only option. So I think the first thing to talk about when we're talking about reinvention is failure. So when you think of failure, what do you think of? And has your definition of failure changed over the years?
I think the people that are super motivated like me always feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like no matter what I've done or what podcasts I've done, or what the subject matter is, I should have done more. I could have done more. I didn't think of that while we were in the middle of filming. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot and da da da. But I think that people motivate themselves as wanting to get to your super self by constantly telling yourself you could have done more. Right. You didn't do enough. So I think that is a foundational motivator I've had my entire life. Like even when I was in grade school, I had really good penmanship, as if that counted now. And I would rewrite, if we were sort of doing an essay, mm-hmm. I maybe had one line in it where I didn't like my penmanship. I would redo the entire essay. It's perfectionism also.
That's so funny.
Which is impossible.
I can remember doing that with notes in class because, you know, you're frantically taking notes, and then I would go home and rewrite them nicer on, like, make sure my paper was like nice and crisp so that my notebook looked proper. It's crazy. I think that's actually why now I write on scraps of paper everything. I don't write things immediately into
I do too.
I write on scraps of paper and then I rewrite it into my notebook.
Nothing is really formalized. Right.
So OCD, pretty much. OCD is the cause of us feeling like we're failures. I mean, do you think that failure to you now looks any different from when you were younger?
Well, I think it might have been a little more overwhelming when I was younger, but I would say having aged, which I have, so I'm 80, Nina's 40. My feeling is that two things play in. One is your karma, your fate, mm-hmm. your destiny.
Right.
And I constantly question myself, did I do the best with what I had and was given? Yeah. And then you have to realize that there are going to be people who are just born with more skills than you.
Right.
So then I think the bar has to be, how much effort do you put into finding your best true self? And if you can honestly examine that and tell yourself that you put in beyond the amount of effort most people do. Like I was saying to you that somebody said, Diane, your 50% of effort is somebody else's 150% of effort.
Yeah.
So I realized that there were social skills and some physical skills and certainly no family support that I was given to work with when I was born. And I'm probably more aware of those now and what not to fight, what is immutable, and what can still be improved and changed.
Yeah, I agree. And that's also just how I was brought up. My dad was like, you will always be the hardest worker. Don't allow anyone to ever fire you because of a lack of work. So that should never be a part of something that they have to consider. If they need to let people go, it needs to be, well, it can't be Nyna, So that's always how I was brought up, which is exactly what I followed.
Yeah.
And I think in times when I felt that I wasn't following that, that was when I felt the most like a failure. I was like, no, I know that I could have done more, and I know that I could have done better.
Yeah, except that there are just some situations where, and to me, it's the worst of corporate America, where there's so many layers and you're in a lower layer, but you're superior to whoever the person is who's at a higher point, but they actually don't want you to outperform them. And that's when you've got to get out of that situation, for sure.
Yep. So you are like so hard on yourself. Like I've never seen anyone else be so hard on themselves. So in times when you feel down or like a failure or that you're not doing what you need to be doing, how do you get yourself out of it? Because
I tell myself it's a total waste of time. I berate myself. I'm hard on myself.
So you get harder on
I'm
yourself.
hard on myself for being harder on myself. Does that make sense? I just, I think one other thing that I see totally differently now is time itself. And I'll just give myself a lecture. You can't afford to waste time being down. You can't afford to waste time being depressed. And now for me, and I take my new career, podcasting, serious as a heart attack, I realize that it's my vision and a certain amount of charisma and speaking from the heart that makes our podcasts successful. And you can't speak from the heart if you're depressed. So I will tell myself that I'm not going to have the podcasts unless I get out of this funk. And yeah, that's how I do it.
Well, similar to what you were saying before we started this recording, for me, I listen to as many signs as possible. I feel like I'm constantly being given signs by the universe.
So true.
And I just try to be as open to those as possible so I can take them in to tell me like, okay, it's time for the change, or, because I do feel like I get into my head of being down on myself and it's hard for me to get out of it. And then I feel like somehow there's like a sign of some sort that happens and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the time to make the change.
So I had that sign. This is kind of the end of my birthday week. And I remember when we first started the podcasting, well, it was about 7 months ago. I was walking somewhere in Manhattan and a guy came up to me, and a young guy, and said, "Oh, you're the Instagram lady, or you're the TikTok lady." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I love your podcasts. They really give me hope, and make me a promise you'll never stop." This week, I walked into my hair salon, which is full of rich, entitled, totally spoiled women. Yeah, yes, that's what I gravitate towards. And a woman walked up to me, probably about 45, 48 years old, tops, and said, "Oh, you're that Instagram lady." And I said, "Yes." She said, "Can I shake your hand?" She said, "I love your podcast. I never miss one. And I want you to make me a promise that you will never quit doing podcasts." And frankly, during my birthday, I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm 80 years old. There's no place for me in life anymore." And I mean, I was second guessing everything in my life. 80 is a pretty lofty number. And I just took it as a sign from the universe to just get rid of any blues and depression I had, match it up with gratefulness for turning 80, and get on the podcast train and forge ahead. Yeah, that was such a sign from the universe.
Yeah.
Wow.
And really, it was you being down on yourself that also led to DG2, right?
You know, when I did DG2, yeah, there was so much about me and um, being on the other side of the change of life and gaining weight and having my body shift in terms of shape. And I was always working too hard or on an airplane to have any kind of meaningful familial life or social life. And yeah, it all boiled down to sort of hating myself and coming up with something that would reconnect me to my youth, which was a perfect fitting jean for a middle-aged body, and it totally changed my life. And in a way, podcasting has that same element of and quality to it where it can really change you. Because so many things you may have developed that you now believe in, or you want to live through, or you want to instruct, or you want to share, are all possible because of podcasts. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing to have grown up till I was 7 years old with radio only, see how television decimated radio, and now as cable TV disappears, radio in the form of podcasts are back again. What goes around comes around.
Yep, absolutely. I feel like that's all it is. It's just an evolving.
Crazy. Yeah.
And so when you were building or when you had the idea for DG2 jeans, you got a lot of no's. And
all no's.
Most people would have said, oh, I guess I just can't do it.
I knew they were wrong. And I'll tell you what, I always know in my heart of hearts, you'll feel it. I feel it right here. And I feel like excitement, like, oh my God, this is a great idea. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And even after the first show, where we sold out of 5,000 pieces in 3 minutes, 5,000 jeans, in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, I called up my business partner at the time, and he wouldn't even admit it. He was like, yeah, it was just a fluke. Nobody believed me. I had to fight for every square inch of territory I took over. But it made me a tough girl.
Sure did.
Ooh.
I think you are one of the most resilient people I've ever met, for sure.
I'm resilient if I have a good idea. I'm going to fight for it. You're not going to take it away from me. I'm going to figure out, is this my niche? Is this where I should be? Can I operate and actually expand? Because expansion is really important to me.
And I feel like that's something that's a huge difference between you and most women in particular. I feel like you have more of that masculine mindset.
Think like a man.
Yep.
My favorite movie title ever. Nothing could beat that. And that was one of the keys, actually, to my success. I used to act like a girl, get upset, cry in meetings. And once I saw that movie, I got it.
So why do you think that women have such a hard time with that, with not only believing in themselves, but making a change? Because I feel like that's what happens, especially when you get into your 50s and your 60s, you start doubting yourself more and more, and you find it even harder to make any change.
I don't think you doubt yourself more and more. I think you change more and more. And the things that you relied on that were automatic, like your looks, your hair, your skin, how you put on your makeup, your body, never having to hassle, always being able to get into a great pair of jeans. All of that is gone. So much of your feminine side of yourself you can't rely on anymore, and you don't have options, or you don't believe you do, and that is because society tells you actually you're not important enough to have options. You're not useful anymore. You're here to breed children, and you don't. And you know what? Get off the stage. Get off the stage, or we're going to get a hook and yank you off. And so truly, that is why, for me, it is so important to build community. I want to be able to have thousands of women say, this sounds like a hair commercial or something, I'm worth it. But the truth is, we're not taught to say that. We're not taught that that's the truth. But in your heart of hearts, you know that if you can have an elevated view of yourself and purpose, and you can take all that accrued knowledge and feed it into the more mature you can take a power stance in life.
I mean, what message do you have for people who are so afraid of change? Because I think that that's the biggest problem. And I see that in a lot of my friends too. I have a lot of friends who've had the same jobs like forever. They're just so scared to make a change. And some of them, sure, they're happy enough. But some of them, I'm like, girl, just do it. Like, you are so unhappy. You have no idea how much better things can actually be.
First of all, I don't think that, and I say this for you, even if you don't feel young at 40, but there is such a delayed sense of the preciousness of time when you're younger that you just say, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it in a couple of years when things get better. But it's always kicked the can down the road. I think change is really, really scary. I have a very simple way of dealing with this. And I will even take like a napkin from Starbucks, I don't care, and draw a line, and two more lines. And it's what I like about my life, what I don't like about my life, and what I'm going to do about it to change it. Make it that simple, but make it your responsibility. It's your life. And I could have stayed in tele-retail forever. I had a great enough track record. I had a pretty huge community base. Cable TV was aging out, and frankly, so was I. I realized that I was no longer motivated.
Mhm.
I could have done it in a semi-coma. And yeah, that's comfortable, but also let's think about a semi-coma. Is that the activity level you want to be at? So I was very honest with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were very angry at me for leaving.
Yeah.
I had to do it, and I had to refresh myself. And I realized that I would never get the most I wanted to get out of the years from 78 when I left onwards, and have a longer life than most if I didn't constantly stimulate myself.
Mm-hmm. I love change. I'm terrified when I make a change, like a huge change in my life. It's the scariest thing you could do, but I love the feeling. I love that feeling, the high that you get of like, this is going to be brand new, and all of the positive things that are going to come from it is all that I can really think about. Like, you can think about all the things that can go wrong, but I actually focus on all of the positivity that's going to come out of the change that I'm making.
Yeah, I don't think about so much about what can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, in whatever I choose, is there room for me?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason for me?
Right.
Is there a purpose for me?
Yep.
And as we proceeded with this podcast, by doing really good work and getting the feedback from your viewers and your audience, there's the motivation, knowing that you did some good. I think that's the newest thought pattern I can give anybody, is you can be in charge of how you age, but that means you got to take responsibility, and you've got to come up with some good ideas. Mm-hmm. And you've got to constantly be refreshing yourself.
Another quote that like comes to mind, because I'm full of quotes, is, if you're not changing it, then you're choosing it. And I like, that was really impactful for me, because I've always said that if you're not happy with it, then you need to start making steps at least to change it. It's so true. If you're settling for it, then you're choosing that life.
It's all about power. And most people, especially aging women, past the age of, let's say, 45, 50, feel powerless. Mm-hmm. But aging is not a tsunami of bad news. It's actually pretty natural. And one statistic that blew me away, only 8%, I think 7.9% of Americans reach 80.
Really?
Uh-huh. So you're already, I feel like I've climbed a ladder, and it's almost like don't look down. It's too far, you'll fall. There's some pretty scary stuff about it. But on the other hand, if you always wanted to be in an exclusive club that you never thought you'd get voted into, turn 80 and you'll know you are in a rarefied atmosphere. And I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's fate. I think it's karma. And I think that you have to have a pretty good sense of discipline and self love. But when I see these guys like Ozzy Osbourne, 76, Mick Jagger, 83, Keith Richards, 82, and these guys led wild ass lives, and they made it to that age, then you know it's life force, it's love of life, it's wanting to be here on the physical plane and having something you feel you must do and complete and accomplish.
Your message is far too important for you to go anywhere for a very long period of time. So
if you saw what my diet was in this last week, occasionally, usually around my birthday, I allow myself to indulge. Oh my, just disgusting. Just like kamikaze diet. I'm back on track.
I guess I didn't help with the carrot cake. Was
no. She delivered carrot cake, and my favorite thing is the cream cheese frosting. And how many times did I open that refrigerator door and just take my finger and swipe it? Till I finally said to my housekeeper, who's got a teenage son, take it away.
All right. So obviously we know that there's not too many 80-year-olds because there's just not many that are left that are watching us. But let's just say you have an 80-year-old woman who's watching right now, and she's afraid to take a step forward in a new direction because she feels that she's too old. What is your advice to her?
Oh my God. You're never too old. It's never too late. Anything that's an idea where you've been dreaming of it, present it with some gravitas. You have to convince people that it's a believable, doable, worthwhile idea. And the best advice I got was from a very good friend of mine, my lawyer. I said, you know, I want to go into podcasting. I think I've got the skills and I've certainly got the interest. And he said, at this point in your life, don't do it for money. Do it for the love of the craft and what you feel you have to deliver. Best advice I ever got.
I mean, that should be most of life as well. Obviously, you have to make money to survive. But I feel like going after something you're passionate about, and maybe it's something that you do on the side. Maybe it's not going to be your full-time job because it's not going to make that much money. But you have to go after
as long as it makes some form of impact that is satisfying to you. You know, I say to myself, I didn't develop the DG2 middle-aged gene till I was 60. So it's only 20 years later. What can I do at 80? Something big. I hope.
There's a game I like to play with one of my friends who has very high anxiety whenever she's freaking out about something, and it's what's the worst that can happen? And I let her completely spiral. Like I say, okay, you're having this issue. What's the worst that can happen? And then she'll say, well, you know, my boyfriend's gonna leave me. Okay, and then what? And then I'm gonna have to move out of the house we share. Okay, and then what? And then I'm going to be by myself. Okay. And then what? And we keep going until we get to this point where she's like, okay, I would survive it. You know, I'm not going to die from this.
Oh my God. Wow.
But I feel like when you actually let out all of the things that could go wrong and realize in that situation, you'll be able to find a solution. You'll be able to work it out and figure it out eventually, as long as you can rely on yourself in that way. I feel like some people maybe not, but you know, play that game with yourself. Like, if I make this change, what's the worst that can happen? Because in the end, it always turns out okay. And if it's not okay, then it's just not the end yet.
I don't know if it always turns out okay.
I think it does. I think you keep making the changes until it turns out okay.
But I know that I did that in a very abbreviated form before we went into doing these podcasts. And it was, what is the worst that could happen? You stop doing the podcast and you're retired.
Yep.
Now, retirement for me is like being put in front of a firing squad. I have got, I know myself, so I know I've got to be useful. I've got to be very literate about it. I've got to hit a huge swath of people. I need numbers. I mean, I know what I need and I know what I can live without. Yeah, I can live without another status handbag or a status pair of shoes. Well, almost. Maybe once or twice a year. When I really reviewed going from tele-retail, which was severely on the decline, to just, people were just giving up their cable, to an overcrowded arena podcasting. I did do that game. But I didn't do it with you. I just did it within myself.
Yeah.
What is the worst that could happen? You use the wrong niche. You're not in a niche that's needed. Yeah. I didn't believe that. You're in a niche that's overcrowded. People told me that all the time, and I thought, not really. I mean, there's a million older women showing how they do their makeup or how they do their hair, not necessarily sharing their thoughts or how to age healthier, easier, happier. And so I knew that I was selling positivity, which the world really needs, and joy and ways to get there, and that would always, eternally be needed by a certain amount of people, and that growing older means something different for women than men. They don't look forward to it. So if you can take some of that fear and negativity away. The other thing was building legacy, and a legacy that after I was gone, people would think of me and it would put a smile on their face. So it's a little creepy to talk about, but it's true. And so aging with purpose is my advice.
I think that's a great note to end on. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please comment below what changes are you making in your life, or what changes are you thinking about making, and what is stopping you from actually making those changes. And we will see you in the next one.
So we hope you learned a lot. We hope you like our little bits of humor. And we hope that we're building a community with you, and that we will be together for a long, long time to come. Thank you all.